Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nadi Digital Economy Malaysia. My name is Karamjit, and with me is my colleague Dzof Asmi. We're going to get right into the maybe a quick 4.5 story that we're going to talk about today. And actually, we're going to start with a Malaysian company called edotco, which is in the telco infrastructure / 5G space. And edotco is actually a wholly owned subsidiary of Axiata Group. And I actually went for a briefing. They had 2 Fridays ago, including a Raya open house. So that was just for the media, not for all their partners and stakeholders. But it was quite interesting, and they were talking about their plans they had and how they plan to move up the value chain. And typically, tower companies is where they provide the tower, because towers are expensive and very a pain in the tush to build, because you got to get permission from many stakeholders, and you got to deal with many parties. So they tell the telcos, it's not your business to get into this headache. We do this. And by the way, when they say they tell them, right, globally there are many infrastructure companies like edotco out there, except that they are of course based in Malaysia, but they are regional player. They've got like easily over 50,000 towers, right, in their under their control. So they are already among the largest independently owned tower companies in the world. So here, anyway, getting back to the crux of this story, they are accelerating their expansion and to enhance connectivity in Asia, they call it, right? And even with the 5G impending rollouts in 9 markets, they're in 9 countries, fantastic, a Malaysian company. And they also have an ambition to become one of the world's top 5 tower companies. And actually, at this event, right, the CEO was there. And I happened to ask him, I said, why are you, giving yourself so much headache by declaring that you want to be one of the top 5 tower core companies in the world? And he says, hey, Karamjit, if we can carry on business as usual and do well every year, right, making our X12, X15% growth, but this now puts us in an uncomfortable position, and we got to strive to excel. And I thought that was a very interesting, reason for him to want to put forward such a high goal and to declare to the world, right, this is what they're going to do. So credit to him and his team for agreeing to that. And then also, because you want to do this, right, you can't operate business as usual. So they said that they plan to move up the value chain, as I said just like 2 minutes ago. Sorry about that. And how they're going to do it is they're going to tell the telcos that we will not just acquire towers for you. We will also help you run some of your operations, especially like, all tower companies, telco companies need to have RAN, radio access network. And they think that we can operate and we will pay for the infrastructure to build a RAN, and then we'll operate it on your behalf. So it becomes a bit more interesting for telcos now, whether telcos want to do that. And of course, there are a few other things they say we can do for you. I don't know. But this is something that change is coming. Because telco companies are, of course, under pressure to reduce their costs so that they can increase their margins. And by the way, just a few days ago, I was talking to somebody who has canceled his plan with one of the big 4 telcos, and he's actually become a customer of Red One, because he said he was not happy with his data and so-called unlimited data being throttled once you hit a certain level of utilization. And he says Red One promises not to throttle. So this telco, one of the big 4, has lost a customer who's been there for 10 years. And that's just an interesting snippet. But it reinforces my point that all the main telco companies are trying to keep their costs as tight as possible so that they can increase their margins, right, top line in a better way, profits in a better way. So this is one. And by the way, edotco says that to do this also, they're using advanced analytics, right? And they're using AI, and they've also built their own in-house tools, which I found is quite interesting. And one of the tools they talk is about using simulating, predicting and interacting with customers, right, to improve for them to understand the utilization of their towers on behalf of the customers, and to tell the customers that, hey, our in-house analytics tool says that we can do this or we can do that, or why don't you reduce this during this time. So a whole bunch of digital things. And also talk about digital, they're also now introducing this digital twin, which means that they've got the exact replica, a digital version of their entire physical network, which allows them to monitor their network in real time. Instead of sending engineers down to a tower, right, which they still do all over the world, right? Towerco companies have engineers assigned every day a schedule where they got to physically go. Now edotco is trying to move much of that back, into the virtual, into the desktop, so that the engineers can spend time just looking and seeing what's the problem and sending a SWAT team, so-called, right? To a tower that's showing impending signs of breakdown or wear and tear. All quite interesting. So they themselves are trying to make their operations much more efficient, so that they can now offer much more value add to the tower, to the telcos out there. So, Dzof, anything you want to add on this? And sorry, by the way, the CEO I was talking about was Adlan Ahmad, right? So I didn't mention his name, but I knew the name Adlan Ahmad.
No, I mean, just to say that the 9 countries that they involved with, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Cambodia, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and Laos. So it sort of gives you an idea of the kind of ecosystem they're working in. And I think to also make the point that, yes, when you hear a tower company, you might think, here are guys that build towers and put electronics on top of towers. But I think the point you're making, Karam, is that they are doing more than that and have ambitions to go even further than just being
they're already doing it. So, but beforehand, me and Dzof had a good question. How do we know what has been the added, performance benefits or cost savings, right, from them using their own digital tools, whether it's called a digital twin or another tool they had a name for it, right? NAPA. And I think it's a network, pioneering network and planning analytics. So it's just a higher level of analytics. So, so we should ask them that. And I'm supposed to send them a bunch of questions, which I will do. But anything else you want to add about this, Dzof, before we move on?
No. I'm actually more like I'm keen to move to the next story because the next story is, of course, about you and I, Karam. So last week we talked about a potential breach of personal data, and this week we're talking about the potential breach of personal data. In this particular case, though, it's no longer the Ministry of Home Affairs, right? It's now we're looking at MITI, and one of the things that MITI ran was they ran a program called PICAS, which was the public-private COVID-19 immunization program. And what has been discovered was one of the folders on a server in MITI was an open folder, which means open directory, which meant that anyone could just sort of like access it and walk through the directory, much in the same way that you go through your own directory on your own personal computer. Okay. And he said there were like more than 2,000 files on it, like Excel files. And when he opened those files, it was all this personal data that came from PICAS. And Karam and I are discussing this, and this guy who discovered this informed Cybersecurity Malaysia, who then informed the correct authorities. And then Cybersecurity Malaysia says they have now closed this case because the vulnerability that was there before is no longer there. So now if you try to go to that same vulnerability, you wouldn't be able to click through and walk through the folders. But I think Karam and I say, again, this is something that should be concerning to the government. This is something that you should be worried about. This is something that you should be trying to address, right? And instead, we sort of, last week it was, well, this is not our problem. It's not our data.
I know.
And this week,
we've done so many stories, or we know of so many cases, right? From 2 decades ago, that's how long me and Dzof have been covering the tech space, right? And perennially, there are issues with, government, websites having issues not being upgraded with the latest patch, and in this case, right, doing things like that. So very careless. And honestly, I was telling Dzof that to me, the issue is that the quality of the tech teams in all government agencies and government ministries especially is very average at most, if not poor. Because which person who's good in technology, right, on a technical standpoint, wants to spend their career, right, in a government, ministry, working there, unless you're totally not motivated and all you want to do is, go in at 8 and then leave at 4:30 or 5 and not have to do anything else and go for seminars once in a while. If you're totally not motivated and you want to just let life go by you, then this would be perfect. So you are highly unmotivated staff, to be honest, right, doing this. And credit to this gentleman, right, Suresh Ramasamy, right, who actually discovered the leak and shared it on LinkedIn. And he actually summarized some reasons why this directory could have been left open. One, maybe a staff wanted to work from home and asked IT to leave that open so they could access it. Another one is that the IT team needs to do some file batching processing to transfer, and I think this is the reason. Somebody that got lazy and didn't do their job. And the third one is that some malicious staff want to sell data. I don't think they are that motivated, especially at MITI or anyone, to do that. They are much more valuable databases you can use. So I think it's the second reason, right? That so nobody in the IT team actually just updated and made sure this is done. And these things need to be done on a weekly basis, right? Checklist. Okay, do we have all the patches are automatic ready, and maybe do some other processes that cybersecurity professionals can tell you need to do. It literally takes minutes to run through a checklist, right? To see, okay, everything's checked. So this is just that I bet probably every other ministry, it's a disaster waiting to happen, right? Somebody who's very motivated and determined to can probably find a gap somewhere, right? And go in and expose that data.
Let's put it this way, Karam.
Just steal that data or borrow the data and monetize it.
If this was the case of someone breaking to your house, looking at your IC card, copying the details from your IC, and then leaving your house, you would be very offended and very upset.
Yeah.
And I feel you should have the same level of feeling offended and feeling upset. Yeah. It's just that it's not there. That's all. I know. I don't see people reacting to it that way.
No, people, and here we are blasé about it. Government, and then most people will say, company one. I'm not registered on the PICAS website. Not my problem.
That's the other one, yes.
But it's not your problem until one day something happens where it's your problem, and then you're going to jump up and down. Hey, why isn't anyone doing something? Really lah. So they said, I think you're right. Cybersecurity said they closed the case, but what has been the learnings from this? They're not going to tell us, so we don't improve. And by the way, the government does have a CTO, right? Chief Information CIO, I think.
Yes.
And has the CIO come out and is some action been done, right, to make sure that this is corrected? No. So, by the way, we should give credit to Code Blue, right? Code Blue is actually always talking about health-based data, but here they decided to write up this story, and they're the ones who had the best coverage of MySejahtera, correct? And including coverage of MySejahtera court case also. But here now, I think because now that MySejahtera is not a hot story anymore, I think their leadership has gone down, so they need to do something. So, Mr. Student, thank you very much.
Yeah, because it's to do with vaccination, right? That's why. That's sort of why.
Fair. So there is a health link here, lah. You're right. Yeah. Okay. Fair,
Next story, Karam.
I was just being super cynical. Sorry about that, Code Blue, because they have right to say, hey,
they can write about whatever they want, Karam. It's not an issue.
Okay, let's move on now. Okay. So look, we'll move on to the next story, and this is actually on Kaodim. So this is one of our on-demand service providers. They've actually been around for like literally, I think 8 years. Can you imagine how long they've been around? And they've been working to try to make it work, right? And finally, they're one of their co-founders, who's Chung Fui Yu.
Yes, the CEO and the...
Yeah, so Chung better use Chung. And he wrote a blog post to say that they did their best, but the issue is that they just couldn't work, and gave a lot of reasons, including the pandemic and inflation. And I was talking to other people who are in this space, right, who have left the space or changed their business model. And I think these are these are not good enough reasons, to say why. And actually, one key thing, I think the main reason is probably because you're working with service providers, right? Your aircon guy, your small-time contractor, your electrician, your plumber, your maybe your kitchen cabinet, your a washing machine repair, your refrigerator repair, and all these names I bring up because in my neighborhood WhatsApp group, people are frequently asking, does someone know this, someone know that, right? And everyone else in the neighborhood group, there are like 260 of us, where people will share an individual's name with them. Not once, I'm the only one who does it. Not once has someone say, hey, go to Kaodim, or you can Kaodim your problem. I'm just being, play of words there. Go to Service Hero or go to Recommend, and you can get people there. Nobody has recommended them. And if your business model, after for them 8 years, right, there's no word of mouth, you are in some serious trouble, right? And I think they just couldn't crack the market. And because, and anyone who's used these platforms, also what's happening. The service provider will go to your house, they'll do the work, and then they'll probably give you their card, or because you're exchanging information with them over mobile, right? Hey, what time are you coming, and this and that. And once they're done already, they give you their number, please call me direct. So that, and you cut out the middleman. But Kaodim is a middleman, right? And they may say, hey, we promise you insurance, if anything goes wrong and this and that. But at the end of the day, people want to get the cost, want it to be done fast and well and cheap. So they want all three things, right? Cheap, fast, and well, good quality. And somehow these platforms have not managed to convince the market that they can be the trusted person to upgrade the quality of the work that these people do. So, and even recommend now is going that way. They're working with a trusted group of service providers, because if you just work with everyone, it doesn't work. And recommend is also in Indonesia. Interesting. They're trying to breach this market, Indonesia. And in Indonesia, they work with individuals. But in Malaysia now, they're transitioning their business model to try to work with some trusted service providers. And this is what they're doing. They're finding certain neighborhoods, right? They're carving the neighborhood, let's say Mont Kiara. And they said if anyone in Mont Kiara, their customers looking for a service provider, they will recommend you that these 2 or 3 parties. Go to them and we recommend the job will be done. You'll have no issues. Our insurance coverage, which will cover any problem, burst pipe or whatever. So they're now moving away from everyone can do it, democratizing access to this, right? To working with some trusted parties. And I think because this market, there's no ethics there with the service providers. So that's why you have failed to create value through your digital platform. And Kaodim is just a very big name to go under, right? They've given it their all. So hats off to the 2 founders who put in blood, sweat, and tears, right? But after 8 years, they've finally given up, and they deserve to go and do something else. And I hope people will grab them, right? Because they've got incredible amount of experience and knowledge under their belts. They'll be very valuable in the market if anyone wants to do anything in this space. So that's what I'll say about this, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to add to it other than to say I felt I sort of agree, understand why it's going to a less democratic, what did you call it, a model with a few selected providers, right? Because
Trusted.
because
you need trust.
Yeah, the fundamental issue is that if the workman that comes to your house says next time you call me directly, you can see how the whole business model breaks down. If that's
disaster. No trust. Before off camera, I was spilling my frustration with Dzof about this kind of quality, right? Right now I have people outside, or probably now they've left already, right? Painting my house, and that's a whole different story that we can talk about next time, because we're already at 19 minutes. We have to quickly go on. Dzof, quickly do 1 minute on IGN, then I'll do 30 seconds on the final story. Yeah.
No, it's just that IGN made announcement. They have a few digitalization initiatives in the works, including the implementation of something called an electronic medical record system. At this point, I'm saying, hey, we had this telehealth flagship project in the MSc in 1997. This is the thing that's been there. You can pull out the blueprint. It explains what it thinks a good medical record system is. But I think I would like to look at this positively and say that, for example, patients that has an app from IGN can use it to keep up to date with the condition, situation, and medication. I think this is
very important. So the key thing is their medical digitization will happen, but separately they've also created an app, right? Because they said that medication non-adherence. I never knew this phrase. And according to this, when a patient does not follow their prescribed treatment plan, it's a serious global issue. WHO said that almost half of patients with chronic diseases don't take their medications as prescribed, and this is very, very dangerous. So that's why they've come up with an app around this, right? And apparently, it causes early death with many people also. So they're partnering with someone to roll this out. Great for them, and great that IGN, right? Probably the best known and probably the top, heart institution in Southeast Asia is now moving, at the back end to get things done, the front end with this app, right, to help patients even more. So good for you, IGN. So now maybe let's just anything else, Dzof, to add before I move on?
No, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. So very quickly, Sunway X-Palm. So look, this show is about us talking about stories that we think can impact Malaysia's digital economy. And Sunway Farms, Sunway has got a urban farm, or you call it, farm tech, right? Maybe agri-tech, not farm, agri-tech. Where they've already got one at their own location in Sunway. They are now actually got a building near KLCC, and they have now converting 3 floors, about almost 40,000 square feet, right? And they're going to be producing, right? They're growing vegetable, right? You look at a picture, it's an amazing picture of vegetable, right? And I've seen it, it's real, it's not doctored. The vegetables that grow in this smart urban farms are incredible, right? I think, do they call it like vertical agriculture? But whatever they did, that phrase here. But I tell you, with the use of blue light or red light, right, at the right time, and with the literally 15% of the water you use if you're on the farm, and the right amount of a nutrient that goes in, the savings are unbeatable, right? Unbeatable. The water savings, incredible, and the quality of the vegetables, you will not go back to farm grown unless it's organic. When you've tried the vegetables grown in these, right, vertical farms, right? Amazing. So I highly recommend you to check out the website if they're opening up for subscription, especially for businesses that are in that neighborhood. Totally worthwhile. Totally worthwhile. And by the way, one of the executives from MCMC, who left, Gerard Lim, also has launched his own business, and I visited their facility in Sungai Buloh. I can't remember the name of the business now, but if you search for Gerard Lim, agriculture or agri-tech, you will see there, and go online and subscribe to his service. Also amazing vegetables there. Okay, there, go ahead. We're even giving people health tips, man. That's good.